Have Droopy from Team Gravity, and a new guest to the RSL. We have Feardragon himself gracing us with his presence. So I'll let you guys take it away.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another group for a round of 16 in RSL Season 2. This is Group C tonight. I'm Droopy here, and I'm joined by an awesome co-caster. What a sight for sore eyes. Feardragon, it's good to be casting with you once again.
Dude, it has been far too long. How you been doing, Droopy?
I'm doing all right, especially when we have such great players tonight. I couldn't
Oh,
possibly
man.
be any better.
Okay, let me just break this down for you right now, Droopy. HuShang is an amazing trash talker. I'm a little bit sad that we didn't get to hear him trash talk because he was offering to do. He was like, "Hey, do you guys want to do an interview? Because I've been preparing for this. I have a million different things that I want to tell my opponent. Doesn't matter who it is. I just got a million things to say, and unfortunately, not ready to. But Protoss versus Protoss, what better way to prove that you're better at StarCraft than to beat the other person on the exact same playing field, both same race, Protoss versus Protoss? It is truly a match of egos right now.
Oh, yeah, and I think the greatest display of skill in StarCraft is the mirror matchup, especially when you can't easily exploit the differences between races. You really have the same strengths and weaknesses as your opponent, and really nothing to hide behind. So tonight, between KellerMaN and HuShang, for the first match, we're going to see two players really have to show their stuff if they want to advance to the round of 8.
Definitely, and I will say I'm not as familiar with the intricacies of KellerMaN's playstyle, but I know HuShang. HuShang is a fairly aggressive player who actually feels pretty comfortable with PvP. He really does enjoy PvP. Unlike a lot of other Protoss players out there, I know that some kind of get caught up in the way that openings end up playing out and how you can get advantages or disadvantages depending on what you pick. But HuShang feels really good about PvP as long as it's not a Phoenix versus Phoenix battle. And I mean, he has control over that, right? Like, if he doesn't want it to be a Phoenix versus Phoenix battle, he just won't open Phoenix.
Yeah, and PvPs can just kind of go like that. So we'll have to see how this best of 3 plays out. So the way this group is going to work is you have 4 players, including these 2 guys. We also have Gamja as well as I'm blanking here. Feardragon, help me out.
Oh, Gamja versus PandaBearMe.
PandaBearMe, there we go.
Esports.
See, having you here has already helped me out. Thank you.
Hey man,
but yeah, those 4 guys.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're gonna have HuShang against KellerMaN, and then it'll be PandaBearMe versus Gamja, and then we'll have the winners play each other, the losers play each other, and then we'll have one final match to determine the last person will make it into the round of 8. So basically, that's how the group will go. So we're gonna get started here with the best of 3, and first map is gonna be Iron Fortress LE.
Yep, Iron Fortress LE for a PvP. Now, things to think about when you think about Protoss versus Protoss is you want to consider how good will this map be for Blink. You want to consider, whether or not there's good opportunities to utilize Stargate play. If it's a really, really big map, then oftentimes it could be a really, really good map for Stargate play. Just because, while your opponent's moving their way across the map, you have so much time. Come in with Oracles, come in with Phoenix to just do harassment. And those are the kind of things that I'm going to be looking for. And Iron Fortress, depending on the spawns, can be an enormous map and great for Stargate play.
Yeah, absolutely. But then, on the other hand, if they're spawning close together, we could be seeing, that kind of air situation that you kind of mentioned earlier, where the really short flying distance. So we'll see if that's going to be the case. Here we are into game number 1, guys. We are going to have both players spawning both on the left. The upper left-hand side is going to be the green Protoss player representing Fragger Esports, guys. It's going to be HuShang.
And his opponent spawned down in the bottom left-hand corner of the map. We have the pink Protoss player representing Team Spectre is the Korean KellerMaN. Truly a fight of American versus Korean, something that we've been seeing in StarCraft for a very, very long time. But, I would say that it's kind of interesting because these 2 players are both, even in the Korean scene, I would say that KellerMaN is probably still more one of the up-and-coming players, and same thing for HuShang in the American scene. So we're seeing kind of the up-and-coming stars for each of those scenes facing off against each other from the different regions.
Yeah, absolutely. And these two players have been in the NA community for some time. I know KellerMaN, of course, is Korean, but he was on Indie Game for a long time, and HuShang was on BrwL Esports. He was on Deadly Gaming for a long time as well. So, both these players have been competing in the same arenas in a lot of ways, and this is just going to be another addition to that long-standing rivalry.
Yeah, now we already have a fairly early probe scout. This is a gateway scout coming out from KellerMaN. I mean, there are some like crazy early scouting timings that a pro player can do, like a pylon scout, but this scout is not looking like a normal scout. This looks like a proxy probe because it's not going to a base.
Yeah, it's not at all. And, if you're going to proxy something without scouting your opponent, it's most likely going to be some sort of tech structure as opposed to a production structure. Because KellerMaN really shouldn't have any idea of where HuShang is at this point. So we'll keep an eye out of what goes next to a pylon. On the other hand, HuShang's sending out a probe of his own.
Yeah, now there are a couple of potentials. The most obvious ones are Stargate and Dark Templars. But I want to go back to Iron Fortress. It's a pretty nice map for a Stargate play. And even though it's not cross-spawn positions, which would be the longest distance between the bases, vertical spawns, you are pretty far away from your opponent. I really do kind of like Stargate play on a map like this.
Yeah, that could be a very interesting situation, especially how close they are. Let's see what tech they're going to go for, because this is kind of the time where you kind of need to make that decision, assuming, of course, that they haven't already decided in their minds going into things. But basically, both are finished up with their cybernetics cores now, so we're going to have to see what tech can go. Looks like a Stargate here from KellerMaN.
Yep, makes a lot of sense. KellerMaN going for that, but HuShang, I mean, he is a fairly decent player, I would say at least. He is actually a pretty awesome player. And he should know, he can identify, wait a second, you only had 2 pylons in your main base, you had both of your gas geysers mining, 3 guys fairly early on, like, there's something going on. He should know. And I'm expecting some sort of reaction, and the Twilight Council is coming up right now, but it's a really, really small thing. I don't actually like the walling in that he's doing around his mineral line, just because I feel like this is going to make it more difficult to deal with the oracles.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if the oracle kind of ventures behind that mineral line, he's going to get stuck in front of that wall, so I can exactly agree with what you're saying there, Feardragon. But, maybe with Blink, he can, I guess, blink through that wall.
That's true, yeah.
That is what he's getting right now.
Yeah, there you go. And, I mean, it's been said for eons and eons that, hey, if you open up Twilight Council versus Stargate, you're in a good spot. So this might be kind of an identification of that or potential for that. HuShang doing some nice damage with this Mothership Core, already killing off 3 workers and is going to be able to recall out. Now, I want to note, though, that means he's not going to have enough energy for Photon Overcharge, and only having 1 Stalker? Oh, this is going to take a lot of damage here.
Yeah, these probes are being run for their lives right now. The Oracle is targeting down those probes here. Second Stalker arrives here, which may send this Oracle away soon, but not before it gets off
7,
another
8.
3 probes, 4 probes. The Oracle dies, which KellerMaN, perhaps was thinking, maybe I'll just kill as many as I can, even if I have to lose them. I don't know. But nonetheless, that's a lot of workers killed. KellerMaN now leading by 6 workers.
Yeah, that was actually going to be a really big blow to HuShang, because he was planning to put on the Blink Stalker aggression behind this. He's gotten his 3 warp gates up. He's trying to chrono boost out Blink, but think about it. He just lost 8 workers. That's going to be absolutely detrimental to his economy. And now suddenly he can't really mine as much gas or minerals as he really wants to. He kind of make hard decisions and choices on how he wants to play this out, how he wants to balance his economy for this impending attack.
Probe scout seen by KellerMaN. KellerMaN goes ahead and takes it out. And both players are gearing up for Blink right now, with KellerMaN slightly behind. Of course, he didn't get his Blink until after his Oracle opener. While we look back at HuShang, he's adding on a Robo here. So he's thinking he may have to defend a little bit perhaps here with some Immortals.
I think that's going to be very astute of him, although he's getting up he's getting up an Observer, and I think this might be a reaction to not knowing whether or not the Twilight Council was for Dark Templar, potentially, or maybe he just thinks that HuShang could have transitioned out into Dark Templar after all the damage he took.
Yeah,
but that actually could be costly.
Yeah, when behind, go DT, right? And, well, HuShang is behind, but he's not going DT. So let's just see what he goes ahead and gets with that with that robotics facility.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that HuShang is backing up over here. He didn't really end up poking up the ramp. I guess he was a little bit afraid of... I want to say, like, getting forced in, but I mean, he has Blink. You shouldn't be too concerned with that. I really feel like HuShang wanted to push in, but he ended up not.
Yeah, and he's going to actually just back up and expand instead, which puts him, a little bit behind because he is going to expand, a little after KellerMaN did, and adding on top of that the worker difference. HuShang does have a bit of catching up to do now as we head into the mid game.
Yeah, I will say he has caught up quite a bit during the course of this, though. I think he was down like a solid 8 or 9 workers, but he's been able to catch up quite a bit. So, give him a little bit of time, and it might not be as big of a difference. But I really like the fact that KellerMaN still has this Oracle around, and it's a newer Oracle. But this is one of those things that you just don't necessarily expect as a Protoss player. HuShang on top of it, though.
Yeah, the Blink helping out there with the Stalkers right under that Oracle. So that Oracle not quite as successful as the first, and now HuShang is thinking, okay, I gotta find this Stargate and sort of nip this problem in the bud, and he goes ahead and spots it, unpowers it, which is really the right thing to do here.
He's just like, nobody ever does this. Nobody ever makes anything after the first, proxy. And KellerMaN just is like, nope, you're gonna have to shut this down if you wanna not deal with Oracles anymore. Well.
So first Immortal coming out here for HuShang. And KellerMaN's been making some Immortals as well. He's still slightly ahead in overall supply, as well as Workers 36 to 31, as he has been producing double probes now for a little bit longer than HuShang. But both players do have their naturals up and running now. So
yeah,
just going to see them move into this Robo-Stalker composition.
Yeah, Robotics Bay coming down a little bit earlier for HuShang, so he's not going to have quite as many Immortals. But if he can get up to a decent Colossus count a little bit earlier on than KellerMaN, then, economies and everything, it does play a pretty big impact. But when you start getting into the later and later stages of PvP, it's not necessarily as much about just pure economy. It comes a lot down to numbers of Colossus and Immortals. And, I really like this kind of pressure that HuShang's doing. Just trying to do the free damage.
Yeah, absolutely. But, of course, HuShang does have to back off a bit. 2 Immortals, obviously. Pretty strong.
Pretty scary.
Yeah, I'd say so. But you're right, though. It really does come down to Colossus versus Colossus a lot of times in these situations. And, you think that you can sort of make up a difference with Archons or something like that, but it never... just so many PvPs I've seen it. Whoever has the most Colossus really does have that big advantage. And
yeah.
Yeah.
I think there are other factors that go into it, especially I would say the number one thing is not even necessarily another unit that goes into it. It ends up being just the positioning. The positioning is so important because you can see someone who tries to attack into a big concave Colossus, even if they have the Colossus lead, they just get obliterated. Immortal counts, though, I think the Immortals for KellerMaN are going to be really helpful as long as the Colossus count is small enough.
Yeah, so right now, KellerMaN going to start cranking out Colossus here, as well as HuShang. And HuShang is going to be up 1 Colossus at the moment, but otherwise, fairly even overall as far as supplies go for both these guys.
Yeah, and both of these guys have been sending in the Hallucinating Phoenix Scouts, so they know what each other's compositions generally are looking like, and that's really important to know, because that means that everything they're doing, they're sort of trying to react a little bit. So KellerMaN is getting up his Colossus. He's a little bit further behind, but he has additional Immortals. He's saying, okay, well, let me just take my 3rd, because I know you just started Colossus production. There's no way in hell you're going to move out with 1 Colossus, or even 2 Colossus is a little bit iffy. So he knows he has time, and he gets the jump on that 3rd because of that scouting information.
Sometimes I think about, too, in this kind of scenario where you really are confident that your opponent's not going to push. What if you were to just, crank out your upgrades faster, put down that 2nd forge? It's a little dangerous for obvious reasons, but, I think as much as we talk about quantity, I think quality is also really important too. And if you can just get the jump on upgrades as well, it could give you a big advantage.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of RSL, since we're casting it, there's another Protoss player in the RSL named Peely, who just loves to say, hey, I know my opponent's not going to attack me for a bit. let's go to the, like, in these spawns, Peely would go to the top right-hand corner of the map, behind the mineral line, and drop down 3 Stargates and start producing Void Rays. Like, sometimes if you can find opportunities to do that kind of crazy stuff, it can pay off in huge dividends, because knowledge is so important in PvP, and if you hide something well and catch your opponent off guard, oh my god, it can make a world of difference. But here we might see the big engagement.
Alright, so it's going to be 4 Colossus on 2.
Oh,
that's a
good
pretty
time
sizable advantage for KellerMaN. Well, those are pretty good time warps as well. That was a pretty...
that...
yeah.
Droopy, that didn't seem close, like, at all.
No, I don't think so at all. And that's kind of what you were saying too. If you're not really having a lot of Colossus, you wouldn't push, right? But HuShang sort of tested that theory, and it didn't quite work out for him.
Yeah, it's a little bit awkward just because he had a lot of Zealots in his composition, and he still has a lot of Zealots in his composition. But they weren't quite doing what they needed to. I mean, KellerMaN has enough Zealots of his own to deal with that. HuShang, you can kind of see, his army is sort of walking in as a bit of a line. KellerMaN is beautifully spread out, but the Archons may make a bit of a difference over here. Is it going to be enough? Doesn't seem like it so far.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the thing is, KellerMaN is defending, right? And he has his army preset into Concave, which HuShang just walks into, and that's why, you know, he takes all those hits early on. Ooh, KellerMaN losing that Colossus there, which is actually a huge grab for HuShang, which is really, you want to keep your Colossus alive as long as possible, but still, nonetheless, we do see HuShang having to retreat here.
Yeah, it's the back and forth tide swings of PvP, but I mean the supply really does tell the difference. HuShang gonna still be down in a decent number of workers. He's not really mining that effectively. He has a proxy pylon at KellerMaN's third. Does anyone else notice this? Like, it's inside of the third. It's just idle. It's just quietly sitting there.
Well, just as you mentioned it, he warps in some Zealots here to harass that third, which is a really good idea because...
Where did these Zealots come from?
Yeah, and some probes are dying right now, which can help even up the economy here because KellerMaN is way ahead. Now we're looking at 60 workers killed in total, and that was a great warp in from HuShang.
It's a great way to even up those economies. And I also want to note, KellerMaN's still a little bit ahead in terms of the army supply, and a lot of that does come down to the fact that he has a 2 Colossus lead, which is a pretty big deal. But HuShang, with the defender's advantage, as it looks like KellerMaN is the one trying to move out, if he can get his own army spread out into a concave similar to what KellerMaN was doing versus him, he still can actually take a pretty decent engagement. And I love this continued harassment. Look at this. KellerMaN is just kind of saying, like, oh god, I want to move out, but oh, there's Zealots coming in, I gotta move back, but I want to attack. He's kind of a little bit indecision coming in.
Yeah, and you know, I don't blame him for the hesitation because really, you can throw away leads so easily if you get more aggressive, especially in PvP. But it's a calculated decision on KellerMaN's part. He is up by, 30 supply-ish. Will Defender's Advantage help out HuShang enough? We'll see. Zealots get into the mineral line of the third of KellerMaN, but the cannons do handle that quite easily.
This is going to be so weird. This is such a weird place to try and defend. HuShang gets to make the decision, do I try and just defend my third at the top of the ramp? Do I try and force you to come to me? Or does KellerMaN just go into the natural, and now HuShang is the one trying to move down the ramp? It's really awkward. But it looks like KellerMaN going to be trying to go up the ramp. I think this favors HuShang a little bit more, but KellerMaN just has a little bit too much, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, this is as easy a battle to look at. It's all quantity there, and that's why we do see the GG, KellerMaN taking game number 1.
And I feel like there were a couple of moments over there where maybe things could have turned out really well for HuShang, especially in the early stages of the game, where he was shutting down that Oracle harasser, no problem whatsoever. Well, actually, no, I say that, but now I think back about it a little bit more in depth, and I remember how many workers ended up going down. But still, HuShang seemed like he was like an okay position, but he was never in control of the game. KellerMaN had points where he just seemed like, oh man, KellerMaN, if you just look at it numerically, he is ahead in this game. And I think that HuShang really needs to find a way to pull himself into a dominant position in this next game.
Yeah, I think, HuShang's attack definitely looked rushed. Like he felt like, I'm kind of behind in this game. I really need to do something. But sometimes, your opponent is macroing at the same time too, And if that's the case, you can't just really put a square peg in a round hole. Like you're behind. You're not going to be able to win the big battle. So if you need to do some damage, find other ways to do it. Like maybe do a warp prism drop or some kind of proxy warp in, something that doesn't involve your slightly smaller army going in one big battle against your opponent's superior one.
I definitely agree. And one of the things I just want to go back to in that game is that Blink Stalker attack that he actually seemed pretty well set up to do. Yeah. But ended up not committing to it. He checked the natural expansion and said, you aren't expanding? Okay, I don't want to overcommit to this. And he backed up, and I really feel like not just at least poking up. That's the beauty of Blink Stalkers, is that unless you're up against like a large number of your opponent Blink Stalkers, which he knew was just not going to be the case because he was up against a proxy Stargate. There was no physical way that KellerMaN could have had an overwhelming number of Blink Stalkers and have gone for the proxy Stargate play. So he should have been able to poke up, check what his opponent had, and make the decision then to back off. And I think he actually probably would have potentially won the game there because KellerMaN went for the Observer instead of the Immortal first. He was preparing for Dark Templars or any other things, trying to get an idea of what HuShang was doing. He was cutting corners on the defense. Like, I really feel like those kinds of decisions are going to be the biggest thing that HuShang is going to want to be wary of in the next game. But what is the next map going to end up being, Droopy?
Well, it looks like Echo LE, which is, well, safe to say, a pretty different map.